10-year-old Yise had already done something no ordinary child could ever accomplish. After a phantom slaughtered his entire family, Yise hunted the monster down by himself and displayed its severed head outside his home. The unbelievable feat terrified the entire village. Instead of calling him a hero, everyone began believing the boy himself was a monster. But the truth was far different. When the phantom hunter, Mongryeon, arrived at the abandoned house, she expected to face a dangerous creature. Instead, she found a wounded child quietly sitting beside the graves of his family, which he had buried with his own hands. Seeing his condition, she offered him food, but Yise only asked one question. Had she come to kill him like everyone else wanted? The boy explained that the villagers had always feared his unusual eyes, and after learning he had defeated a phantom alone, they became even more convinced he wasn't human. Rather than judging him, Mongryeon asked him to tell the whole story. That night had changed everything. Hidden behind a wooden door, Yise watched a phantom brutally slaughter his parents and siblings. Powerless to save them, he swore revenge, using nothing but a handmade bamboo spear treated with salt. He tracked the phantom for days, sold everything he owned to gather information, and finally killed the monster himself. When Mongryeon asked why he displayed its head outside the house, Yise answered that he wanted the monster to suffer the same humiliation it had brought upon his family. Looking into his eyes, she realized the boy wasn't lying. He possessed courage, patience, and determination far beyond his age. But once his revenge was over, Yise admitted he had no reason left to keep living. His only wish was to die beside his family's graves. Instead of comforting him, Mongryeon flicked his forehead. She asked whether killing a single phantom was really enough after everything he had lost. Those words left Yise speechless. Declaring him completely human, she refused the villagers' request to eliminate him and warned everyone to leave the orphan alone. When the village chief continued calling Yise a cursed child, Mongryeon revealed her true identity as a powerful dokebi, making it clear that anyone who harmed the boy would answer to her. But the villagers ignored her warning. Consumed by fear and hatred, they surrounded Yise's house that very night and set it on fire. As the flames spread toward his family's graves, Yise desperately tried to protect the only thing he had left. At that moment, the villagers' overwhelming hatred gave birth to another terrifying phantom. The gigantic monster immediately attacked, destroying the graves and nearly killing Yise in a single strike. Covered in blood, Yise realized the one thing he wanted most had been taken from him once again. As Mongryeon's words echoed through his mind, something inside him finally awakened. A violent surge of purple energy exploded from his body. Without hesitation, Yise charged straight toward the enormous phantom and buried his weapon into its giant eye. Although the attack wasn't enough to finish the monster, Yise finally understood what true revenge meant. His revenge would never end until every phantom in existence was destroyed. Moments later, his exhausted body finally collapsed. Before he could hit the ground, Mongryeon caught him. With overwhelming power, she erased the gigantic phantom in a single attack and looked down at the unconscious boy with admiration. She declared that the real monsters had never been Yise or the phantoms alone, but the hatred inside the villagers themselves. Determined to change the boy's future, Mongryeon decided to take Yise with her and personally train him until he became strong enough to fulfill the promise he had made. From that day forward, the orphan who had lost everything began walking the path of a true phantom hunter. In the peaceful courtyard, a beautiful orange butterfly drifts beneath the clear blue sky before softly landing on Mongryeon's shoulder as she quietly watches over the young boy resting in bed, his body still covered in bandages. The moment Yise begins to move, Mongryeon notices that he has finally awakened. She calmly reminds him that she is the phantom hunter who rescued him from the edge of death. She also makes it clear that saving him was simply her own decision, regardless of whether he appreciates it or resents it. As his thoughts become clearer, the painful memories of the previous battle flood back. He remembers the terrifying giant phantom, the sea of flames, and the heartbreaking sight of the graves he had prepared for his family being completely destroyed. His final memory is of Mongryeon carrying him away as dawn arrived. At that moment, he realizes that everything he experienced was real. When Yise removes part of the bandages and looks at his body, he is shocked to find that every burn has completely disappeared. He sincerely appreciates the treatment he received and even praises the dokeasi despite fully understanding who they are. His calm reaction surprises Mongryeon, who quickly realizes that the boy judges people by their actions rather than their race. After confirming his name once again, Mongryeon brings up her earlier proposal of taking him in as her disciple and teaching him the art of exorcism. She explains that he possesses remarkable natural talent and has the potential to become an outstanding hunter. Although the offer sounds almost too generous, Yise honestly admits that it also makes him suspicious. His cautious attitude amuses Mongryeon, but she immediately explains that the road ahead will be anything but easy. She reveals that his training will take place inside the Dokebi realm, a land overflowing with demonic energy that is extremely dangerous for ordinary humans. The training methods are so ruthless that every single day will feel like endless torture. Instead of being intimidated, Yise quietly reflects on those words. He believes that only such harsh training can give him the strength needed to destroy monsters. Without any hesitation, he accepts her offer. His unwavering determination earns a faint smile from Mongryeon. She admits that she had only intended to frighten him a little, but now realizes that his resolve is far stronger than she expected. Before beginning any training, however, she orders him to recover completely. Driven by his determination, Yise eagerly finishes the warm meal prepared for him. Watching him eat with such focus, Mongryeon quietly leaves, while reminding him not to waste a single bite. After enough time has passed for his recovery, the two begin their journey toward the Dokebi realm. As they travel through a vast mountain range hidden beneath thick mist, Yise notices the strange atmosphere surrounding the area. Mongryeon explains that the unusual weather is caused by the overwhelming evil energy covering the land, and warns him never to cross the sacred boundary rope. Their journey eventually leads them to a gigantic wooden gate. Mongryeon reveals that it marks the entrance to the Phantom Guardian's temple, the place where Yise will now live. An ancient warning carved onto the gate declares the temple forbidden to ordinary humans. Yise wonders whether entering such a sacred place is truly acceptable for someone like him. His concern isn't for his own safety, but for the trouble he might cause Mongryeon. Realizing this, she confidently assures him that no one inside the temple would dare question the decision of their leader. Hearing that title, Yise begins to understand just how respected Mongryeon truly is. As the enormous gates slowly open, an incredible hidden city appears before his eyes. Ancient temples stand among colorful trees deep within the mountains, creating a breathtaking world unlike anything he has ever imagined. While observing countless residents walking through the temple grounds, Yise realizes they are all Dokebi. Some immediately become suspicious after noticing a human entering their sacred home, while a pair of young Dokebi children silently watch him with curious expressions. Without wasting any time, Mongryeon publicly announces that Yise has officially become her new exorcism apprentice. She declares that everyone must treat him with kindness and respect, because he is now part of their family. The villagers immediately accept her decision without objection. Their warm welcome leaves Yise surprised, making him realize that a single word from Mongryeon is enough to earn everyone's trust. Satisfied with the introduction, Mongryeon decides that the first lesson of becoming a phantom hunter should begin immediately. Instead of taking him to a training ground, she leads him to a massive dining table overflowing with food, and even requests additional meat dishes. Unable to understand the connection between food and exorcism, Yise silently questions the purpose behind the feast. Mongryeon patiently reminds him that he is still a growing child. Before learning to fight monsters, he must first build a healthy and powerful body through proper food and rest. Ignoring that foundation now would become a serious regret later. Understanding her reasoning, Yise immediately begins eating as much as possible. His determination to become stronger is obvious, as he eagerly devours plate after plate, leaving Mongryeon pleased with his attitude. Their meal is soon interrupted by the arrival of an energetic Dokebi girl named Ganga, who rushes over carrying another huge bowl filled with meat. Before leaving to handle her own responsibilities, Mongryeon asks Ganga to guide Yise to his room after making sure he finishes everything on the table. Already completely full, Yise silently realizes that eating this much might actually be the toughest part of his training. Curious about her new companion, Ganga playfully examines his unusual appearance and quickly learns that he is only 10 years old. She is amazed that someone so young behaves with such maturity. In contrast, Yise finds her childish personality difficult to believe considering her age. The temple cook laughs and explains that humans mature almost twice as fast as Dokebi. In reality, Ganga is mentally only about a year older than Yise. Hearing this, Ganga happily decides to treat him as her little brother and promises to take good care of him. Yise quietly watches her cheerful smile, experiencing a warmth he had never felt back in his old village. After finishing the enormous feast, Yise struggles to walk because of his completely stuffed stomach. Ganga simply laughs, explaining that someone his age will digest everything quickly. As they continue talking, she reveals that Mongryeon is a legendary phantom hunter who has spent more than 300 years eliminating monsters and possesses strength greater than every dokebi living in the temple combined. The revelation leaves Yise stunned. For the first time, he truly understands how different the lifespans of humans and dokebi are. Even so, the kindness shown by both Ganga and Mongryeon makes it difficult for him to see them as monsters. Instead, they feel far more human than many of the people he once knew. That peaceful moment suddenly comes to an end when an arrogant voice echoes across the courtyard. Yise and Ganga turn around to find a group of hostile dokebi staring directly at them. Their leader, a blue-haired troublemaker named Ilchui, steps forward with a mocking expression. Upset that a human has entered the dokebi realm and become the personal disciple of their leader, he approaches with his gang, making it clear that they have no intention of giving Yise a warm welcome. As evening settles over the mountains, the temple is bathed in brilliant shades of orange, and the peaceful surroundings stand in sharp contrast to the violence unfolding in the courtyard. Ganga rushes forward in an attempt to stop the confrontation. Horrified by what she finds, Yise is left bruised, bent over in pain, and clearly suffering from a merciless beating. Although Ganga tries to intervene, the attackers dismiss the situation as nothing more than a routine sparring session. According to them, Yise simply needed to understand how powerless he truly was before ever facing real monsters. They insist that his weakness would only get him killed outside the safety of the temple. Beneath those excuses, however, lies Ilchu's resentment. He cannot accept that the respected hunter chose to train a frail human instead of someone as naturally gifted as himself. Despite his injuries, Yise slowly forces himself back onto his feet and wipes the blood from his face. Realizing that everyone views the assault as ordinary training, he calmly apologizes, believing he had misunderstood the situation. Since he wanted to avoid causing trouble inside the temple, he had endured every blow without resisting, convinced that interrupting the other's practice would only create unnecessary problems. His unexpected humility catches Ilchu completely off guard. Instead of feeling satisfied, the bully becomes even more irritated. Unable to tolerate Yise's calm attitude, he lashes out once again, driving another brutal punch into the young orphan before unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks. Yise can do little more than protect himself while absorbing strike after strike. As the assault continues, Ilchu grows increasingly frustrated. Although he is overwhelmingly dominating the fight, something about it feels deeply unsatisfying. Through every punch, Yise refuses to avert his gaze. His eyes remain fixed on his opponent, carefully observing every movement instead of surrendering to fear. While enduring the punishment, Yise begins recognizing a consistent rhythm behind Ilchu's attacks. Every strike follows the same sequence. The moment he fully understands the pattern, his stance suddenly changes, startling everyone watching. With remarkable speed, Yise slips past the next incoming blow and instantly launches a counterattack. Empowered by his mystical strength, his fist surges forward before Ilchu has any chance to react. The bully realizes too late that evading the attack is impossible. Yise's punch lands squarely against Ilchu's face, sending a powerful shockwave across the training yard. The impact leaves the bully stunned as he clutches his bruised jaw in disbelief. Overwhelmed by both pain and shock, he collapses onto his back, completely drained by a single perfectly timed strike. Breathing heavily and covered in blood, Yise reflects on his own shortcomings, even wishing his reach were longer, while remembering his mentor's advice about properly nourishing his body. Rather than celebrating his victory, he approaches the fallen Ilchu and offers him a hand. Although he may appear weak, Yise hopes that any future sparring matches will be fought with complete sincerity, because real monsters would never hold back. Determined to continue improving, he expresses his desire to face Ilchu again in another sparring session. As night blankets the mountain temple beneath a sky full of stars, peace returns to the surroundings. Inside one of the temple rooms, Mongryeon examines Yise's battered condition with a serious expression. News of the fight has already reached her, and she quietly begins treating his injuries with a radiant green healing energy. Yise attempts to dismiss his wounds as nothing more than the result of ordinary training, but Mongryeon is unconvinced. While continuing to heal him, she reminds him that rough training is natural, though she expects him to seek help if matters ever go too far. Curious about the outcome of the sparring match, Mongryeon asks whether he managed to land a single hit. Wanting to avoid creating conflict, Yise falsely claims that Ilchu remained untouched, because he deliberately chose not to fight back as a guest of the temple. The lie immediately angers Mongryeon. Using her mystical power, she effortlessly lifts Yise into the air, making it obvious that she has seen through his excuse. She reminds him that she introduced him as part of her own family, not as an outsider who should hesitate to stand up for himself. Embarrassed, Yise promises to remember her words. Trying to explain himself honestly, he admits that his hesitation was never caused by shyness. Ilchu had fought with genuine strength, and Yise simply lacked the ability to land any meaningful attack. Mongryeon agrees, acknowledging that Ilchu possesses enough natural talent to compete alongside experienced adults. The revelation makes Yise wonder whether someone with such skill could successfully hunt phantoms. Mongryeon's answer is immediate and unwavering. Despite Ilchu's superior physical ability, she believes he would almost certainly lose his life against real monsters because he lacks the calm judgment required in true combat. She explains that defeating evil spirits requires far more than strength alone. Yise himself had survived his earlier encounter by identifying the phantom's weakness and using salt strategically rather than relying on brute force. Ilchu, despite his talent, would fall because he neglects knowledge, while Yise could eventually fail if he depended on luck alone. Only by combining martial skill with careful study can someone become a genuine exorcist. With that lesson complete, Mongryeon assigns Yise his first official task. His training begins with grueling physical conditioning. Every day he runs countless laps around the temple grounds and performs exhausting sets of push-ups to strengthen his frail body. Once the physical training ends, he spends long hours buried beneath towering stacks of books in the temple library. Studying tirelessly, Ganga quietly watches his relentless dedication with growing admiration. After observing him for an entire week, she cannot help wondering whether he ever grows tired of reading. Yise explains that he must complete his assigned task to earn his mentor's approval. When he reveals that his goal is to read every book in the library, Ganga is left speechless by the impossible scale of the challenge. Although she jokes that such an assignment would drive anyone insane, Yise admits that he genuinely enjoys reading. Noticing the bruises covering his body, Ganga asks about them. Yise explains that he must eventually win a sparring match to prove himself in battle. Curious about who could possibly leave him so battered every single day, she soon discovers the answer. Back in the training yard, Yise once again faces Ilchu. After another exhausting match, Ilchu complains about the human's unbelievable persistence, frustrated that he returns every day seeking another fight. For Yise, however, every match is simply another opportunity to prepare for the monsters waiting beyond the temple walls. Ganga finally realizes that these daily battles are the source of all his injuries. Since humans rarely overcome Dokaibi through strength alone, Yise believes constant practice is the only way to survive future encounters. Growing increasingly irritated, Ilchu stomps the stone courtyard so hard that cracks spread beneath his feet. He warns Yise that he has been holding back and threatens far greater consequences if the human dares to challenge him again. Ganga quickly places herself between them, trying to stop the intimidation. Ilchu eventually walks away, unable to hide his jealousy over the attention Yise receives. Even then, Yise remains completely unfazed by the threats. He calmly accepts the risks and continues asking for another match. His unwavering determination leaves Ilchu strangely unsettled. As he walks away with his companions, he becomes convinced that the human boy is utterly insane. Moments later, Yise calls after him once again, inviting him to fight another day. From that point onward, Yise challenges Ilchu every single day. No matter how many warnings he receives, he never gives up. Ilchu continues insisting that no untalented human could ever surpass a warrior of the Dokaibi race. Yet Yise refuses to abandon his goal. As the seasons gradually change, leaves drift through the temple grounds, turning from green to brilliant shades of red. Time passes, but Yise's determination never fades. Meanwhile, Ilchu finds himself growing increasingly disturbed. During every sparring match, Yise's attention never seems focused on him alone. The mystery gnaws at him until he vents his frustration by relentlessly attacking a straw training dummy. Convinced that Yise cannot possibly close the enormous gap between them, he swears that neither Ganga's admiration nor the temple master's recognition will ever be stolen by the human newcomer. The months continue slipping away, eventually becoming an entire year. Autumn once again blankets the mountains surrounding the temple. Standing face to face in the training yard, Yise and Ilchu prepare for another match, while Ganga and the other residents watch closely. In a single, unforgettable moment, everyone falls silent. Ilchu instinctively reaches toward his bruised face, unable to comprehend what has just happened. At the same time, Yise looks down at his own fist and realizes that, after an entire year of relentless effort, he has finally landed his very first clean strike against his rival. As soon as the blow lands, Ilchu quickly steps backward and refuses to admit what happened. He insists that the hit only connected because he accidentally lost his footing. Furious that his pride has been damaged, he charges at Yise with everything he has, throwing a powerful punch meant to end the fight. Instead, Yise slips past the attack with astonishing speed, avoiding it effortlessly. The flawless dodge leaves Ilchu stunned. Watching Yise evade every strike, he realizes that the human must have spent the entire year training with relentless determination. For the first time, he begins questioning whether Yise's year of growth had surpassed his own. True exorcists are not created through physical strength alone. Demons possess overwhelming power that ordinary humans can never hope to match through muscle alone. No amount of physical training can completely erase that difference. The advantage humans possess lies elsewhere, in the knowledge they acquire through study. Even while consumed by frustration, Ilchu continues attacking without hesitation. Yise calmly avoids every strike with incredible precision, predicting each movement by understanding his opponent's habits and targeting opportunities with perfect timing. His mastery of theory allows him to overcome an opponent who is physically stronger. Still, knowledge by itself is never enough. Even the greatest understanding becomes meaningless if a fighter lacks the ability to land a decisive blow. A true exorcist must combine wisdom with complete control over martial skill. Putting both qualities together, Yise launches a rapid series of attacks that strike Ilchu squarely across the chest and face. The relentless combination overwhelms the blue-haired warrior, proving that only someone who masters both knowledge and combat technique can hope to defeat powerful demons despite possessing a fragile human body. The young disciples watching from the sidelines are left speechless. Ganga can hardly believe that Yise has managed to surpass his longtime rival after only 1 year of training. The victory is so overwhelming that another student immediately rushes over to check on Ilchu after he crashes onto the ground. Later, beneath the bright afternoon sun, peace returns to the temple courtyard. Ganga enthusiastically praises Yise's incredible progress, but he quietly shifts the conversation by teasing her for talking endlessly. Their attention is soon drawn to a group of black-cloaked warriors preparing to leave the temple. Standing before them, Mongryeon gives her final instructions before the journey. Hearing Yise call out to her, she turns with mild curiosity. When he asks about her destination, she explains that every year she travels to hunt demons, while also protecting humans, and showing them that the Dokebi are peaceful beings. Yise finally understands that this annual mission was the reason she had appeared in his former village the previous year. Curious about the progress of the assignment she entrusted to them, Mongryeon asks how Yise has been doing. Ganga eagerly prepares to reveal his recent victory, but before she can speak, someone unexpectedly places a hand on Yise's shoulder. Ilchu steps forward and openly admits that Yise defeated him fairly in their sparring match. His honest acknowledgement surprises everyone, including Mongryeon. Rather than making excuses, Ilchu praises Yise's growth and declares that he will train even harder so he will not lose again. Yise finds it unusual to hear Ilchu address him so naturally, while Ganga remains suspicious of the sudden change in attitude. Mongryeon, however, is delighted. Believing Ilchu has finally matured enough to accept Yise as part of the family, she gently pats his head with satisfaction. The cheerful reaction quickly reveals that Ilchu's display is at least partly an attempt to earn Mongryeon's approval. Nevertheless, she departs happily, hoping everyone will continue getting along during her absence. Afterward, Guyol expresses relief that the tension between Yise and Ilchu appears to have disappeared. Yise simply accepts the situation without making much of it. Curious about the sudden friendship, he asks when everything changed, only to learn that Guyol had merely pretended to dislike him out of loyalty to his older brother. Although Ilchu becomes irritated that his younger brother has grown fond of Yise, he soon suggests that the boys spend time together. The invitation excludes Ganga, leaving her visibly annoyed. She immediately answers with a punch that sends Ilchu reeling, while Yise quietly reflects on the fact that someone had finally referred to him as a brother. As night blankets the mountains beneath a brilliant full moon, silence settles over the temple. Only a few lanterns illuminate the entrance, as darkness surrounds the buildings. Hidden within the quiet night, a heavy padlock is carefully unlocked. The boys secretly slip into the temple armory. Guyol hesitates, worried that they should not be there, while Ilchu urges everyone to choose a weapon. His goal is to settle their rivalry through a genuine demon hunt beyond the temple grounds. Yise immediately reminds them that Mongryeon strictly forbade anyone from leaving before reaching adulthood. He also points out that there is no guarantee they will even encounter a demon. Gyal then mentions that temple scouts recently heard the cries of a baby somewhere near the forest, suggesting that a child demon may be nearby. Hearing this causes Ilchu to briefly reconsider the expedition. Yise warns that acting on such assumptions is extremely dangerous. Many different demons are capable of imitating the cries of infants, making careless decisions potentially fatal. However, Ilchu dismisses the warning, accusing Yise of relying too heavily on books instead of courage. When Yise refuses to ignore Mongryeon's orders, Ilchu mocks him as a coward. Without waiting any longer, he leads Gyal toward the forest, while continuing to insult the human for staying behind. Watching the group disappear into the darkness, Yise remains silent. After a long moment of thought, he ultimately decides to follow them. Filled with confidence, Ilchu grips his iron mace, eager for what he believes will become his first true hunt before reaching adulthood. The group treats the expedition as an important rite of passage toward becoming real demon hunters, and Ilchu proudly embraces the challenge. Along the way, one of the boys laughs at Yise's choice of a small axe, joking that it looks better suited for chopping firewood than fighting demons. Ilchu quietly assumes the human brought such a weapon because fear has already taken hold of him, proudly recalling an encounter with a demon's remains during his childhood. He remains convinced of his own superiority. Yise, however, is focused on something entirely different. He silently wonders whether following the others was the correct decision. Drawing upon everything he has learned from countless books, he remembers that a child demon is usually more troublesome than truly dangerous and should not be especially difficult to defeat. Even so, he refuses to lower his guard. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, and every movement in the darkness receives his full attention. His greatest concern is not facing an ordinary child demon, but discovering that the creature is something far more dangerous than anyone expected. Without warning, a horrifying wail tears through the forest. The dreadful cries echo between the trees, filling the night with unbearable tension. Moments later, the source of the screams reveals itself. Standing before the stunned hunters is a gigantic four-legged monster, whose grotesque body is covered with dozens of crying human heads. Every twisted face screams in agony, as the horrifying creature radiates an overwhelming and sinister presence, making it immediately clear that the group has encountered something far beyond their expectations. The four boys continue deeper into the dark forest. They remain unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Ilchu grows frustrated when they fail to find anything, insisting the scouts had reported hearing a baby's cries in this area. The others begin suggesting they return to the temple, convinced there are no demons around. Still irritated, Ilchu blames Yise for ruining the excitement after defeating him in their recent sparring match. Yise calmly dismisses the accusation, explaining that his victory had only come through luck and by catching Ilchu off guard. Instead of boasting, he sincerely praises Ilchu's superior strength and martial skill. The unexpected humility leaves Ilchu flustered, though he quickly hides it behind exaggerated confidence. Feeling proud, he proposes that the two become sworn brothers. Caught off guard, Yise happily accepts the idea, admitting he had always wished for an older brother. The heartfelt response leaves Ilchu completely embarrassed and unsure how to react. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by the sound of a crying baby echoing from nearby bushes. Believing they have finally located the child demon, Ilchu rushes ahead, eager to prove himself, while encouraging his new little brother to watch a real exorcism. The excitement disappears the moment he steps into a clearing. A massive creature emerges from the darkness, releasing terrifying shrieks. Although it resembles a baby in some ways, its appearance is utterly monstrous. Its enormous mouth is lined with razor-sharp teeth, while dozens of crying human heads cover its body. The horrifying demon towers over the stunned boys, as every distorted face screams through the night. Realizing the truth, Yise urgently orders everyone to run, recognizing that this is no ordinary child demon. Before anyone can escape, the monster's long necks shoot toward them at incredible speed. Yise barely blocks one attack with his shield, while the others narrowly avoid being torn apart. Gyal freezes in terror as one of the heads lunges toward him. Yise throws himself into danger, shoving the youngest boy aside and taking the impact himself. Although his shield softens the blow, he immediately worries about his friends. His fears are confirmed almost instantly. Ilchu cries out as one of the demon's heads bites deeply into him. Another attack strikes Wuljang, while Guyol suffers a devastating wound to the stomach and collapses, bleeding heavily. Surrounded and badly injured, the young hunters find themselves completely cornered, as the creature's countless heads seem to laugh at their hopeless situation. The monster is revealed to be an Asungyong Ma, a terrifying level 6 demon. While lower-ranked demons still leave rookie hunters with reasonable odds of survival, a level 6 demon reduces those chances to almost nothing. Yise immediately realizes they have encountered the worst possible enemy, especially since they are only inexperienced children facing a monster meant for trained hunters. Fear begins consuming the group. Ilchu, overwhelmed by pain and regret, finally understands how different real demons are from training exercises. He blames himself for leading everyone into such a reckless hunt. While Wuljang struggles to remain conscious, Guyol's wound is clearly fatal, and Ilchu desperately searches for a way to save him. Yise forces himself to think calmly despite the panic. He notices something strange. The demon has suddenly stopped attacking. Remembering what he studied, Yise explains that this species enjoys feeding on prey, overwhelmed by despair. Rather than attacking immediately, it waits for its victims to face an impossible choice: either abandon their dying companion and live with unbearable guilt, or stay together and perish as a group. The realization crushes everyone. Ilchu refuses to accept abandoning Guyol, but he slowly realizes there may be no other way. Meanwhile, the injured boy quietly asks whether he will truly be left alone in the darkness, as the demon slowly approaches. Unable to make such a cruel decision, Ilchu breaks down in tears. Before anyone can react further, Yise suddenly throws a heavy object toward the monster. It explodes into a thick cloud of smoke, filling the forest and blinding the demon with a bright flash. Using the brief opening, Yise rushes toward Guyol. With immense pain in his heart, he apologizes to his friend and vows that one day he will return to destroy the monster responsible. Hidden by the smoke, the survivors begin fleeing through the forest, while silence briefly returns behind them. Ilchu and the others run as fast as they can, refusing to look back. Exhausted and badly wounded, they struggle to escape while Guyol remains alone in the darkness. The young Dokebi quietly hopes his friends manage to reach safety and accepts his tragic fate. As the survivors continue running, Ilchu painfully admits that leaving Guyol behind may have been the only way to save everyone else. Even so, the guilt threatens to overwhelm him. Left alone, Guyol asks his friends not to seek revenge and instead focus on surviving. The giant demon slowly approaches the helpless boy. Hidden behind the trees, Yise secretly watches with blood covering his face. Horrifying sounds echo through the forest as the creature begins devouring Guyol alive. Every crunch of bone and every scream forces Yise to endure the nightmare in silence. Moments later, the horror becomes even worse. Guyol's face appears fused onto the demon's body as a brand new head, filled with hatred and despair. It cries out in Yise's friend's voice, accusing them of abandoning him and begging them not to leave him behind. Frozen in terror, Yise grips the bark of a nearby tree, while listening to the monster imitate his fallen companion. As the demon disappears into the darkness with its newest head, it leaves behind a chilling promise that the rest of them will soon share the same fate. Back at Guizu Temple, Dokaibi patrol warriors rushed through the grounds, carrying blazing torches, desperately searching for the boys who had disappeared during the night. The peaceful atmosphere quickly turned into chaos, as everyone realized several young warriors were missing. Meanwhile, Ganga slowly woke from her sleep, confused by the unusual noise echoing outside. Still rubbing her eyes, she approached one of the temple residents to find out what had happened. The woman, visibly distressed, explained that Ilchai, Wuljang, Guiel, and even Yise had vanished from the temple under the cover of darkness. Patrol warriors had already informed their superior and headed deep into the forest in hopes of bringing them back safely. The news immediately reminded Ganga of the earlier conversation she had shared with the boys. In that instant, she realized they had ignored the warnings and secretly ventured into the dangerous forest. Fear spread across her face as she imagined the terrifying dangers surrounding them. Gazing into the endless darkness beyond the temple, she silently wished for every one of them to return alive. Elsewhere in the forest, Yi raced through the trees with remarkable speed, carrying only his shield and small battle axe. While moving carefully through the darkness, his thoughts remained trapped in the painful decision he had made earlier that night. Leaving one of his companions behind was a burden he knew would haunt him forever. Although the choice tormented him, Yise convinced himself there had been no other option. Challenging the demon together would have led to everyone's death, while sacrificing one person had at least preserved a chance to fight another day. The heartbreaking situation reminded him of the tragedies that had already taken away the people he loved in the past. Rather than seeking a reckless confrontation, he believed following the demon unnoticed and discovering its hideout offered the only realistic path toward avenging his family. Even so, the memory of Guyel's kindness before the battle continued to weigh heavily on his conscience. The logical decision he had made felt unbearably cruel, filling him with guilt and self-hatred. As those emotions overwhelmed him, his resentment toward demons only grew stronger, convincing him that every painful loss existed because such creatures still roamed the world. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted when a heavy boot landed directly on the path ahead. Startled, Yise looked up and recognized Gocheon, one of the Dokkaebi patrol warriors from Guisu Temple. The experienced warrior appeared both furious and relieved after finally locating the missing boy. Without wasting time, Gocheon demanded to know what had happened to the others after all the panic they had caused back at the temple. A's expression immediately darkened as he silently pointed toward the blood-stained remains left behind. He explained that the group had encountered an Ongyongma, and during the encounter, Guyel had been devoured by the demon. The horrifying revelation left Gocheon frozen for a moment. Shock quickly transformed into uncontrollable rage as his clenched fist trembled with anger. Wanting immediate revenge, he pressed Yise for every detail about the creature's appearance. A described it as a monstrous beast resembling a horse, its body covered with multiple human faces. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Gocheon prepared to hunt the demon immediately and ordered Yise to return safely to the temple. However, the boy noticed something strange. The veteran warrior showed no sign of recognizing the monster, suggesting he had never encountered it before. Concerned, Ai believed waiting for reinforcements would be the wiser decision. Confident in his own strength, Gocheon dismissed the suggestion without hesitation. As one of the 5 strongest Dokkaebi warriors in Guisu Temple, he believed he possessed enough power to defeat the demon alone. Seeing the warrior's determination, A quietly decided to accompany him instead of retreating. Gocheon immediately rejected the idea, insisting the mission was far too dangerous for an inexperienced rookie. Nevertheless, Yise remained persistent, explaining that he alone knew the demon's location, and that rescuing the others still trapped in the forest had to come before anything else. Eventually, Gocheon accepted the arrangement under one strict condition. If the demon appeared, A was to flee without hesitation. The young human calmly accepted the order. Elsewhere, Ilchui struggled to endure the unbearable pain caused by his devastating injuries. To stop himself from crying out, he bit down hard on a tree branch, while desperately trying to slow the heavy bleeding pouring from his mangled arm. Torn flesh and broken demon fangs remained scattered across the blood-soaked ground, marking the site of the previous battle. Barely able to stay conscious, Ilchui anxiously asked whether the demon was still pursuing them. Despite suffering severe wounds himself, Wuljang tried to reassure him, yet beneath that composure lay overwhelming grief. The painful reality that only the 2 of them had survived filled him with despair, as thoughts of their abandoned youngest companion continued to haunt him. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, Ilchui exploded with frustration. Convinced they could have saved their friend by fighting together, he blamed Ye's reasoning for tearing the group apart. Wuljang, however, harshly rejected that belief. In his eyes, surviving under such circumstances brought only shame to those who had sworn to become demon hunters together. Those bitter words left Ilchui speechless, forcing him to confront a painful truth he could not answer. Suddenly, the eerie sound of a crying infant echoed once again through the silent forest, instantly filling the wounded warriors with dread. The unnatural cries grew closer, until a tiny baby-shaped demon drifted into view before Ilchui. As he stared at the grotesque creature, he realized it was merely a low-ranking child demon. Despite its harmless size, its twisted grin and piercing squeals made the surrounding darkness feel even more unsettling. Without hesitation, Ilchui struck first. His heavy weapon crashed down with tremendous force, smashing the tiny demon and unleashing all the anger that had been building inside him. Every ounce of his frustration poured into the attack, as he convinced himself that Ye's interference had prevented him from defeating the larger demon earlier. Nearby, Wuljang allowed his grief to transform into burning hatred. Determined to avenge Guyel, he resolved to continue fighting until every demon responsible for their suffering had been wiped out. The moment Ilchui and Wuljang prepared to continue their pursuit, the towering multi-faced demon appeared behind them without making the slightest sound. Before either of them could react, the creature unleashed a devastating surprise attack that filled the forest with blood. Ilchui stood frozen in absolute horror as the brutal strike unfolded before his eyes. His trembling gaze fell upon Wuljang, whose body collapsed lifelessly onto the forest floor, surrounded by an expanding pool of blood. His voice shook as he called out to his fallen companion, unable to accept what had just happened. The monstrous demon calmly stepped over Wuljang's corpse, wearing a grotesque smile that reflected its satisfaction. It seemed to delight in the fear and despair consuming the lone survivor. With blood covering his trembling hands, Ilchui tightened his grip around his metal mace. Every remaining ounce of courage was gathered as he fixed his eyes on the creature that had slaughtered his friend. Grief and fury overwhelmed him, strengthening his resolve to honor his fallen comrades by defeating the monster standing before him. Driven entirely by vengeance, Ilchui charged toward the demon without hesitation. However, before his attack could reach its target, the monster's enormous jaws snapped shut around him, swallowing his desperate assault in an instant. As darkness closed in, the dream of avenging his friends seemed destined to end alongside him. Just before the fatal blow could claim his life, a powerful spear tore through the air with remarkable precision and slammed directly into the demon. The force of the attack interrupted the creature's assault and sent it reeling backward. Gocheon had arrived. Consumed by righteous anger, the veteran patrol warrior refused to allow the children of Guisu Temple to fall victim to the monster. His timely intervention rescued Ilchui, whose tear-filled eyes slowly opened in disbelief as he realized help had finally arrived. The impact of Gocheon's spear forced the giant demon away from its prey. Without wasting another moment, the experienced warrior stepped forward and positioned himself between the monster and the surviving boys. He immediately instructed A to support Ilchui and retreat while he handled the battle alone. Relieved to find his companion still alive, Ye quickly helped Ilchui back onto his feet by supporting him across the shoulders. At the same time, the enraged demon let out a thunderous roar after losing the meal it had nearly claimed. Remaining calm despite the overwhelming threat, Gocheon demonstrated why he was considered one of the temple's finest warriors. His spear moved with extraordinary precision as he launched a relentless assault against the creature. Every swing landed with incredible force, carving deep wounds across its massive body while striking multiple grotesque heads in rapid succession. Each attack carried the fury of a protector defending the future of Guisu Temple. The experienced warrior fought without hesitation, determined to punish the monster for harming the children entrusted to his care before ending its life once and for all. Watching from nearby, Ie couldn't help but admire the overwhelming difference in strength. Compared to the veteran patrol warrior, the demon appeared to be steadily losing ground. For a brief moment, it truly seemed possible that Gocheon would end the battle through sheer power alone. Beside him, Ilchui remained consumed by grief. Tears streamed down his face as guilt overwhelmed him. In his mind, the deaths of both Guil and Wuljang rested entirely on his shoulders, and no amount of victory could erase that burden. Despite Gocheon's impressive performance, an uneasy feeling continued to grow inside Ie. Remembering everything he had learned about demons, he understood that victory was never determined by physical strength alone. Recognizing the hidden danger, Ie urged Ilchui to return to Guisu Temple while he remained behind. The wounded boy couldn't understand the decision. From his perspective, the battle was already tipping in the patrol warrior's favor. But Yi saw something different. Although Gocheon clearly possessed greater raw strength than the demon, Ie feared the creature was preparing a psychological trap rather than relying on brute force. If the experienced warrior allowed his emotions to cloud his judgment, even someone as powerful as him could be defeated. Convinced that the battle was far from over, Ie kept his full attention fixed on the unfolding fight, ready to intervene the moment the demon revealed its true strategy. Determined to end the battle once and for all, Gocheon gathered his strength and prepared to deliver the decisive blow. His confidence remained unshaken as he charged toward the wounded demon, believing victory was finally within reach. Just as he closed the distance, the creature revealed the terrifying ability that had allowed it to prey upon so many victims. The grotesque faces covering its body suddenly transformed into the familiar appearances of the boys who had recently died. The faces of Wuljang and Guyel emerged from the demon's flesh, wearing expressions filled with fear and desperation. The horrifying sight instantly shattered Gocheon's composure. His body froze as painful memories overwhelmed his mind. Looking at the faces of the children he had sworn to protect, he hesitated at the critical moment. His determination wavered, and the finishing strike never came. The demon had been waiting precisely for that hesitation. Exploiting the opening without mercy, the monster lunged forward and violently impaled Gocheon before he could recover. The sudden attack drove deep into the veteran warrior's body, leaving him badly wounded. Even through the unbearable pain, Gocheon understood exactly what had happened. He recognized that the faces before him were nothing more than illusions created by the demon. Still, knowing the truth did little to lessen their emotional impact. The familiar appearances of the fallen children continued to shake his resolve. His instincts urged him to destroy the illusion immediately, yet his heart refused to strike. The bond he shared with the young warriors proved stronger than his ability to remain rational in the heat of battle. The demon understood that weakness perfectly. Having hunted countless victims over the years, it had mastered the art of exploiting grief, love, guilt, and regret. Rather than relying solely on overwhelming strength, it carefully targeted the emotions of its prey, breaking their fighting spirit before delivering the final blow. Again and again, this cruel method had guaranteed its victories. No one who had faced the monster had ever managed to overcome such relentless psychological torment. Watching the situation unfold, A immediately recognized the danger he had feared from the very beginning. Without allowing himself to be distracted by the horrifying illusions, he rushed forward with complete determination. Blood stained his body as he gripped his small axe tightly and charged straight toward the monster. His attack landed cleanly against the demon, interrupting its assault and forcing its attention away from Gocheon. For the first time in countless hunts, the creature encountered something it had never expected. Unlike every previous victim, Yise refused to be manipulated by its illusions. He saw through the deception without hesitation and remained focused solely on the reality before him. To Yise, the faces covering the monster meant nothing. They were not the people he had lost. They were only another weapon created by a demon. Without allowing emotion to cloud his judgment, the young human pressed forward with unwavering resolve. His eyes burned with determination as he reminded Gocheon of the simple truth the demon wanted him to forget. No matter what shape it assumed or whose face it borrowed, the creature standing before them was still nothing more than a demon.